Chapter 15. The Cricketers. The crickets sang in the grass. They sang the song of summer's ending, a sad, monotonous song. Summer is over and gone, they sang. Over and gone, over and gone, summer is dying, dying. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when the summer is changing into autumn, the crickets spread the rumour of sadness and change. Change, change, summer's dying, great, great. Everybody heard the song of the crickets. Avery and Fern Arable heard it as they walked the dusty road. They knew that school would soon begin again. The young geese heard it and knew that they would never be goslings again. Charlotte heard it and knew that she didn't have much time left. Mrs. Zuckerman at work in the kitchen heard the crickets, and a sadness came over her too. Another summer gone, she sighed. Lurvy at work building a crate for Wilbur heard the song and knew it was time to dig potatoes. Summer's over, summer's gone, cricket over, gone, repeated the crickets. How many nights till the frost, sang the crickets. Goodbye, summer, goodbye, goodbye. The sheep heard the crickets and they felt so uneasy they broke a hole in the pasture fence and wandered up into the field across the road. The gander discovered the hole and led his whole family through it, and they walked to the orchard and ate the apples that were lying on the ground. A little maple tree in the swamp heard the cricket song and turned bright red with anxiety. Wilbur was now the centre of attraction on the farm. Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbur was a pig any man would be proud of. One day more than 100 people came to stand in his yard and admire him. Charlotte had written the word radiant. And Wilbur really looked radiant as he stood in the golden sunlight. Ever since the spider had befriended him, he'd done his best to live up to his reputation. When Charlotte Webb said some pig, Wilbur had tried hard to look like some pig. When Charlotte Webb said terrific, Wilbur had tried to look terrific. And now that the Webb said radiant, he did everything possible to make himself glow. It is not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur threw himself into it with all his will. He would turn his head slightly and blink his long eyelashes. Then he would breathe deeply, and when his audience grew bored, he would spring into the air and do a backflip with a half twist. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. "How's that for a pig?" Mr. Zuckerman would ask, well pleased with himself. "That pig is radiant." Some of Wilbur's friends in the barn worried for fear all this attention would go to his head and make him stuck up. But it never did. Wilbur was modest. Fame did not spoil him. He still worried some about the future, as he could hardly believe that a mere spider would be able to save his life. Sometimes at night he would have a bad dream. He would dream that men were coming to get him with knives and guns, but that was only a dream. In daytime, Wilbur usually felt happy and confident. No pig ever had truer friends, and he realised that friendship is the one of the most satisfying things in the world. Even the song of the crickets did not make Wilbur too sad. He knew it was almost time for the country fair, and he was looking forward to the trip. If he could distinguish himself at the fair and maybe win some prizes, he was sure Zuckerman would let him live. Charlotte had worries of her own, but she kept quiet about them. One morning, Wilbur asked her about the fair. You're going with me, aren't you, Charlotte?" he said. Well, I don't know, replied Charlotte. The fair comes at a bad time for me. I shall find it inconvenient to leave my home, even for a few days. Why? Said Wilbur. Oh, I just don't feel like leaving my web. Too much. There's too much going on around here. Oh, please come with me, begged Wilbur. I need you, Charlotte. I can't stand going to the fair without you. You've got to come. No, said Charlotte. I believe I'd better stay home and see if I can get some work done here. What kind of work? Said Wilbur. Egg laying. It's egg laying time. I made an egg sack and filled it with eggs. I didn't know you could lay eggs, said Wilbur in amazement. Oh, sure, said the spider. I'm versatile. What does versatile mean? What does it mean, full of eggs? Asked Wilbur. Certainly not, said Charlotte. Versatile means I can turn with ease from one thing to another. It means I don't have to limit my activities to spinning and trapping and stunts like that. Why don't you come to the fairground and lay your eggs there? Pleaded Wilbur. It would be wonderful fun. Charlotte gave her web a twitch and moodily watched it sway. I'm afraid not, she said. You don't know the first thing about egg laying, Wilbur. I can't arrange my family duties to suit the management of the county fair. When I get ready to lay eggs, I have to lay eggs, fair or no fair. However, I don't want you to worry about it, and you might lose weight. We'll leave it like this. I'll come to the fair if I possibly can. Oh, good, said Wilbur. I knew you wouldn't forsake me just when I needed you most. All that day, Wilbur stayed inside, taking life easy in the straw. Charlotte rested and ate the grasshopper. She knew that she couldn't help Wilbur much longer. In a few days, she would have to drop everything and build a beautiful little egg sack to hold all her eggs. Chapter 16. Off to the fair. The night before the county fair, everybody went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8. Avery lay dreaming that the Ferris wheel had stopped and that he was in the top car. Fern lay dreaming that she was getting sick in the swings. Lurvy was in bed by 8:30. He lay dreaming that he was throwing baseballs at a cloth cat and winning a genuine Navajo blanket. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9. Mrs. Zuckerman lay dreaming about a deep freeze unit. Mr. Zuckerman lay dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 116 feet long and 92 feet high, and that he'd won all the prizes at the fair and was covered with blue ribbons and even a blue ribbon tied to the end of his tail. There you go, look. Enormous Wilbur. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, all except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day. Every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off on his great adventure. When morning came, everyone got up to the day. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arables' house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water to her room and took a sponge bath. Then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew she would see boys at the fair. Mrs. Arable scrubbed the back of Avery's neck and wet his hair and parted it and brushed it down hard till it stuck to the top of his head, all but about 6 hairs that stood straight up. Avery put on clean underwear, clean blue jeans and a clean jersey. Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast and then went out to polish his truck. He had offered to drive everybody to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green. In gold letters it said, "Zuckerman's famous pig." Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion. Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly. He tried to look radiant without getting his food in his ears. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. "Homer," she said to her husband, "I'm going to give that pig a buttermilk bath." "A what?" said Mr. Zuckerman. "A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pigs in buttermilk when it got dirty. I just remembered." "Wilbur's not dirty," said Mr. Zuckerman proudly. "He's filthy behind the ears," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "Every time Lurvy slops him, the food runs down around his ears, then it dries and forms a crust. He also has a smudge on the side where he's been laying in the manure." "He lays in clean straw," corrected Mrs. Zuckerman. "Well, he's dirty and he's going to have a bath." Mr. Zuckerman sat down weakly and ate the donut that his wife had given him. His wife went to the woodshed. When she returned, she wore rubber boots and an old raincoat, and she carried a bucket of buttermilk and a small wooden paddle. "Edith, you're crazy," mumbled Zuckerman. But she paid no attention to him. Together they walked to the pig pen. Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She climbed in with Wilbur and went to work. Dipping her paddle in the buttermilk, she rubbed him all over. The geese gathered around to see the fun, and so did the sheep and the lambs. Even Templeton poked his head out curiously to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte got so interested she lowered herself on a dragline so that she could see better. Wilbur stood still and closed his eyes. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and some buttermilk ran into it. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy. When Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, prettiest pig you ever saw. He was pure white, pink around the ears and snout, and smooth as silk. The Zuckermans went up to change into their best clothes. Lurvy went to shave and put on his plaid shirt and his purple necktie. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded around and around their mother. "Please, please, 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 please take us to the fair, please take us to the fair, please, 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 please take us to the fair," begged the goslings, all 7 of them teasing to go. "Oh, please, 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 please." They made quite a racket. "Children," snapped the goose, "we're staying quietly at home. Only Wilbur is going to the fair. Okay, only Wilbur. Just then, Charlotte interrupted. "I shall go too," she said softly. "I've decided to go with Wilbur. He may need me. We can't tell what may happen at the fairgrounds. Somebody's got to go along who knows how to write. And I think Templeton better come too. I might need someone to run errands and do general work." "I'm staying right here," he grumbled the rat. "I haven't the slightest interest in fairs." "That's because you've never been to one," remarked the old sheep. "A fair is a rat's paradise. Everybody spills food at a fair. A rat can creep out late at night and have a feast. In the horse barn, you will find oats that the trotters and the pacemakers have spilled. In the trampled grass in the infield, you'll find old discarded lunchboxes containing the foul remains of peanut butter sandwiches, hard-boiled eggs, crumb crackers, bits of donut and particles of cheese. In the hard packed dirt in the midway, after the glaring lights are out and the people have all gone home to bed, you will find a variety of treasures of popcorn, fragments, frozen custard dribblings, candied apples, abandoned by tired children, sugar fluffs, crystals, caramel almonds, popsicles, all sorts of things. Lollipops. Everywhere is loot for a rat. In tents, in booths, in hay lofts. Why, a fair has enough disgusting leftover food to satisfy a whole army of rats. Templeton's eyes were blazing. Is that true? He asked. Is this amazing yarn of yours? Is it an appetising yarn? I like high living, and what you say tempts me. It is true, said the old sheep. Go to the fair, Templeton. You will find that the conditions at the fair will surpass your wildest dreams. Buckets with sour mash sticking to them, tin cans containing particles of tuna fish, greasy paper bags stuffed with rotten. That's enough, cried Templeton. Don't tell me any more. I'm going. Good, said Charlotte, winking at the old sheep. Now, then, there is no time to be lost. Wilbur will be put into his crate. Templeton and I must get into the crate right now and hide ourselves. The rat didn't waste time. He scampered over the crate, crawled between the slats, and pulled straw over him so that he was hidden from sight. All right, said Charlotte. I'm next. She sailed into the air, let out a dragline and dropped gently to the ground. Then she climbed the side of the crate and hid herself inside the keyhole on the top board. The old sheep nodded. What a cargo, she said. That sign ought to say Zuckerman's famous pig and 2 stowaways. Look out, the people are coming, umming, shouted the gander. Cheese it, cheese it, cheese it! The big truck with Mr. Arable at the wheel backed slowly down towards the barnyard. Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman walked alongside. Fern and Avery were standing in the body of the truck, hanging on to the sideboards. Listen to me, whispered the old sheep to Wilbur. When they open the crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go without a struggle. Pigs always resist when they're being loaded. If I struggle, I'll get dirty, said Wilbur. Never mind that. Do as I say. Struggle. If you were to walk into the crate without resisting, Zuckerman might think you were bewitched. He'd be scared to take you to the fair. Templeton poked his head up through the straw. Struggle if you must, he said, but kindly remember that I'm hiding down here in this crate and I don't want to be stepped on, or kicked in the face, or pummelled, or crushed in any way, or squashed, or buffeted around, or about, or bruised, or lacerated, or scarred, or biffed. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant, when they get shoving you in. Be quiet, Templeton, said the sheep. Pull in your head. They're coming. Look radiant, Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk up, geese. The truck backed slowly to the pig pen and stopped. Mr. Arable cut the motor, got out, walked round the rear and lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arable got out of the truck. Fern and Avery jumped to the ground. Mr. Zuckerman came walking down from the house. Everybody lined up at the fence and stood for a moment admiring Wilbur and the beautiful green crate. Nobody realised that the crate already contained